Greetings, Lisa here. If you go to sleep at night and you feel like you've done something, more than likely you have. We consider it that you work for the army of the Lord or you're working for the army of the bad guys. Either way, I'm speaking to you. These theorems are based on Dolores Cannon's work, reading my Bible, and my own personal experiences. Now, when we talk about the dream time, we're talking about when you awaken, you start meditating, exercising, and doing all the things you're supposed to do, and you meditate and you go through that series of the thoughts are always, ripping past you and everything. When you get past that and you go through your quietude and you do your sonic resonancing, and eventually you start seeing images in your third eye, then you're actually on your way to operating in the dream time. My channel is specifically for people who know they operate in the dream time. Okay? Today's Thursday, Thor's Day. When I looked for this card, he was right there. So we will be going into part 2, chapter 8 of Angels Don't Play This Harp. But before I do, I have some downloaded messages I need to share. And I thought I'd share those first because some of you just like the messages, okay? First of all, they've been bugging me. To Justin Bieber, your primary angel, your guardian angel is Uriel. They just want you to know that. A lot of times, and to all of you out there, those of us who work on the side of the light, the army of the Lord, we have specific set angels. We have groups of them. They won't leave us alone. Not everybody has Michael. There's a pantheon of angels. Trust me on that. Now, sometimes in order to you first get started in this and you don't know, you actually have some etheric wings, okay? And the angels, your guardian angels, will come and they fix your wings. They do healing, protective work, and it feels like somebody's kind of maybe like tickling you. It could be itchy. To get your attention, sometimes they'll touch you right on the nape of your neck, just like to let you know they're there. Sometimes they'll do it right here, and it'll maybe feel like a hair on you. That's an angel letting you know they're there. There's something. A lot of times they want you to sit still so they can fix your wings, and they have information to give you, which comes through the form of telepathy. You won't hear voices. They're telepathic. The only time you know when stuff's going on out there with the angels, when you hear that jingling, like a group of jingling going on, stuff is going on out there, and you can ask your angel, hey, what's going on? Do I need to be involved? And they'll tell you yay or nay. So there's a little angel stuff. I got a few messages from cards, so we'll go through those real quick. And then I have some other downloaded stuff to say before I read from the book. I hope that's okay with everybody. Somewhere, Dr. Planet or Dr. 7 of Planet 9 or a doctor will find something completely unfathomable in DNA. So if you're having any if you're involved in any DNA work, then something unfathomable might be shown. And this could also have something to do with the court case. Since there's many test subjects, something about our DNA might come out today. It's unfathomable. A shadow walker who was trying to mess with power muses took a lot of physical punishment and maybe gave some physical punishment, has been fired by their cloak of levitation for crimes against humanity. Okay, I'm not saying that's Doctor Strange. I say Doctor Strange on the bottom, but somebody's protection is gone, okay? Fucking weirdos. I'm sorry, I have to say that. In court today, stop testing subjects without consent or, what's that word? Compensation. That's coming up. There's bigoty energy involved in that. They are being given a really big celestial warning. It's being blocked, and it probably will say, this will not pass. It will not pass under scrutiny. Okay. Something's going to go on I asked, is this coming July? And it doesn't mean the 4th because it's red, white, and blue. Lord Shiva is going to be working with tree people. Okay? That's just somebody out there. Oh. There's a partnership based on work. There's going to be some work partnerships starting up, and be open to receive. Okay? Good. That sounds like a good thing to me. And Pastor Levi's message last Sunday was about anger, but he talks about working out, and he had this jacket that the smell, he couldn't get the workout smell. He called up the company, and he said he tried all the vinegar and all that stuff, and they told him to put it out in the sun. So I got this message, the sun and the gardenia. The gardenia, love, purity, refinement, protection, and a secret love. Maybe a secret love is going to be exposed, but maybe this just means go out, take in some sun, smell the flowers if you have some around, and if you're into gardenias and you can afford it, smell the gardenias. It'd be good for you, okay? Especially to us test subjects. Get some effing sun into you. It's good, and the sun might expose something for you, to move forward and be happier. And I want to talk a little bit about the test subject thing before I go into the Haarp, because I've had some other downloads. First of all, an acronym, I would like you to know. My dream catchers, one fell off my curtain. I had it on my nightstand, and it's gone. 2 dream catchers are gone from my apartment. 2 of my gummies have been stolen, and a few of my anxiety pills. So I'd really like it if somebody would do something about that. I've already spoken to the police. Not about this, but about other stuff. So if anybody listens to me, that's why I'm telling this, because getting in to talk to anybody seems impossible anymore. The other thing is, there's been a whole thing about Muslims having fetishes and fantasy over women and stuff in America, getting mad about what we say on YouTube or if we walk around with our hair exposed. We're American women. American women don't like to be told. They don't like to obey either. I just need to put that out there. The other thing is, I sometimes see children in the dream time in my third eye. And I'm told by the children, they hang around me because they know there's protection there. Some of these children do watch my channel. So if you have unsupervised children who watch my channel, I do use the bad words, and they think it's funny. But, kids, you don't use those words till you're 18. At any rate, they watch me, and a young lady named Charlotte, who unfortunately is bound up in this story, told me that I'm really her mother. This is so shocking. That through being human trafficked by one of my 2 husbands and the CCTV camera things, and in the whole 5D experiment test subject things, they took some of my eggs, and that man, the father of Charlotte, his wife impregnated herself with my eggs. So you have my child. And I told her to tell Dad, and that's really weird, but I'm putting it out here just in case the message didn't get through in 5D. Okay, that's all I'm going to say about that. But it's, to me, despicable that any human being thinks they could put somebody on a CCTV camera zoo, and you're taking off your clothes, going to the bathroom, maybe you're humming, maybe you're scratching your vagina or your penis, and people are cackling about it. I think that's despicable. And when you work for the army of the Lord, that's what we're fighting. And we use weapons and we use tools. And I hope some of you have been harmed. And I would really like this to end, especially the shooting of the cool, watery Ray, which he's doing right now, and the pinching of the vagina. It's like 15-year-olds. Are they generals? Are they being paid by generals? And what was the outcome of this test subject? Anyway, that's all I got to say about that. It's time to go on to the book. Thank you for listening to my messages. I hope they help somebody today. I'm going to put Thor there because he's important in all this. Okay. I'm going to have a spot of water before I start. I think Haarp could be a disaster. A statement by Philip S. Callahan, Ph.D. Part 2. Scientists are concerned. This is chapter 8. Some of these electromagnetic emissions may be reaping irreparable damage to the ionosphere and Earth, which threatens our very existence. Dr. Elizabeth Rauscher, particle physicist. Independent scientists seek return to sanity. Who can stop the big zapper? William Van Bise of Nevada is a scientist who is passionate about the safety of his children and grandchildren, and he can't understand why some high-level military planners seemingly are not. According to the documents about the Haarp, the military's disrespect for dynamic natural systems hasn't changed much in the decades since nuclear bombs were the favored research tool for studying Earth's geomagnetic field. Van Bise, an electronics and biomedical engineer, says bluntly, they're suicidal. He made the comment after reading about Haarp, the military's plan to pump unprecedented levels of radio frequency power up through the upper atmosphere to heat parts of the unpredictable ionosphere. His concern is that the experimenters admit they do not know what the outcome might be. There's a notation here. And here's the notation. Telephone conversations between William Van Bise and co-author of Angels Don't Play This Harp, Jeane Manning, May 1995. Surprisingly few scientists know about ionospheric heaters. Why in the world would anyone want to heat up the ionosphere? It's already hot enough, said one head of a large university's physics department. Co-author Manning gave him the benefit of the doubt, but as it turned out, he was not joking. Other department heads at universities with sizable atmospheric physics departments had heard about ionospheric heaters, but said their knowledge of the research was vague. The University of Alaska's geophysical department knows what an ionospheric research instrument is because the university is directly involved in Haarp funding. But although auroral research involvement of the University of Alaska is played up in press releases, Haarp's internal documents say the goal of the experiments is to control ionospheric processes so they can be exploited by the Department of Defense. Concerned scientists such as Van Bice are doubly discouraged because the people who want to control the electrojet or make nuclear-sized explosions, there's a notation here, U.S. patent number 4,873,928, nuclear-sized explosions without radiation. And then there's a notation, or an artificial cyclotron, another notation, U.S. patent number 4,712,155, method and apparatus for creating an artificial electron cyclotron, among patents assigned to APTI. In the upper atmosphere, the most difficult to stop. Traditionally, they have held the biggest handfuls of taxpayers' money. Their power base includes mega corporation defense contractors and their lobbyists. Few physicists are willing to risk their livelihood, government contracts, by contradicting these people. Whistleblowers. Elizabeth Rauscher has a PhD, a long and impressive career in high-energy physics, and has been published in prestigious science journals and books. The notation, 73, relevant publications include Application of Soliton Physics to Plasma, MHD, and Superconductivity, BCS. Theoretical implications for primary energy, report prepared for primary energy technology, LA, ambient electromagnetic fields as possible seismic and volcanic precursors, by W. L. Van Bice and E. A. Rauscher, in electromagnetic phenomena related to earthquake prediction, edited by M. Hayakawa and Y. Fujinawa, Terror Scientific Publishing Company, Tokyo. ELF signatures arising from space vehicles, disturbances of the ionosphere, by E. A. Rauscher and W. L. Van Bice. Unpublished paper from Electromagnetic Signal Laboratories, Golden Valley, Nevada. That's a big, big reference there. Yet her warnings apparently go unheeded. For example, in 1984, she presented scientific findings at a Pentagon briefing and then tried to address the colonels and generals person to person about global environmental issues. They refused to respond to her blunt questions. Don't you worry about your children and grandkids? 7 years ago, Rauscher and her partner William Van Bice wrote a paper. There's another reference here. Fundamental Excitatory Modes of Earth and Earth Ionosphere Resonant Cavity, by Dr. Elizabeth A. Rauscher and William L. Van Bice of Technic Research Laboratories, Reno, Nevada, article published in the Proceedings of the 1988 International Tesla Symposium, that discussed the Earth's magnetic field emanations in technical language, but ended with a strongly worded warning. Earth and life forms on it vibrate and resonate in harmony, they noted. Radiant energy from the sun and materials and vibrations of the earth support life. Is there a symbiosis between the earth and the life forms upon it? Absolutely. After mentioning chemical and radioactive pollution of our life support systems, they injected a less publicized concern. Some of the electromagnetic waves generated by man may have global significance. Damage to the ionosphere. The paper had discussed natural sources of electromagnetic waves such as Earth's mechanical rotation, earthquake, and volcanic activities, solar wind, and solar broadband noise activity. Man-made sources, the two experts said, are disturbing the harmony. Some of these emissions may be reaping irreparable damage to the ionosphere and Earth, which in turn threatens our very existence. Societies and nations must examine what we are doing and develop a new awareness. The two scientists warn, or destruction of life will inevitably result. As if predicting the goals of Haarp, they noted that most recent technologies have been aimed at shielding people from nature to conquer and control her, while designing ever more dangerous weapon systems with which to more efficiently strip all life from planet Earth. Rauscher and Van Bijs ended the paper with a suggestion that society examine why we have moved towards such insane motivation and then go forward to again pursue mutual life enhancement and sanity. Bubble of electric particles. May of 1995, Dr. Rauscher was asked to comment specifically on Haarp. You're pumping tremendous energy into an extremely delicate molecular configuration that compromises these multi-layers we call the ionosphere, she replied. The ionosphere is prone to catalytic reactions. In other words, she explained, if a small part is changed, a major change in the ionosphere can happen. And there's a reference number 75 here. Jeane Manning's May 1995 interviews with Dr. Elizabeth Rauscher and William Van Bijs. In describing the ionosphere as a delicately balanced system, Dr. Rauscher shared her mental picture of it, a soap bubble-like sphere surrounding Earth's atmosphere with movements swirling over the surface of the bubble. If you've ever watched a large bubble closely, you see these rainbows-like patterns flowing over it. Then you see a black spot where the wavelengths of light are so short that they can't show the bubble, but it hasn't burst yet. Then a hole forms, then it pops. Project planners who experiment with the ionosphere do not agree with her model of what could happen. Rauscher said, but I strongly believe the ionosphere works that way. When human activities make massive holes in the real ionosphere, the holes at the north and south poles migrate just like the shapes on the bubble. This is how a dramatic loss of the ozone layer happens to appear over Australia. For example, there have even been sun watches, ozone hole watches, over high altitude states such as Nevada, where Rauscher and Van Bijs live. Decision makers know the cause, the SST, supersonic transport, and the space shuttle and its Russian equivalent. I have the Russian report that calculates how many space shuttles it will take to destroy the ionosphere. Why anybody would want to do that is insane. In a corresponding situation at a lower altitude, while anyone who ever used a spray propellant is made to feel guilty about holes in the ozone layer, scientists continue to spend up rockets and launch satellites to study the ozone layer. Each burn of rocket fuel destroys another part of a percent of the ozone layer. Bragging about punctures. Returning to the higher altitudes, we see that Science journals in the early 1980s reported openly on the ionospheric disruption caused by scientists themselves. But how many outside of their specialty read papers on topics such as the High Energy Astrophysical Observatory's HEAO, hole in the ionosphere? There's a notation here. Michael Mendillo, Donald Rote, and Paul Bernhardt preliminary report on the HEAO hole in the ionosphere, the American Geophysical Union, 1980. The launch of one of NASA's high-energy astrophysical observatories on September 20th, 1979, for example, by Atlas Centaur rocket, produced an extraordinary opportunity to monitor a large-scale, artificially induced depletion of Earth ionosphere, the scientists exulted. They were being paid to study the impact of repeated rocket exhaust activity in the ionosphere. Data showed the HEAO hole followed the rocket's ground track, extending at least 2,000 kilometers and probably 3,000 kilometers to the east of Cape Canaveral. Its north-south extent spanned 600 to 1,000 kilometers, or whatever km is. I'm figuring that's kilometers. And thus, the overall disturbed region totaled 1 to 3 million km in effective surface area. For about 3 hours, the depleted area centered on the rocket's path, then moved northward within hours. Evidence of the hole disappeared from the affected region. Slicing the ionosphere. David Yarrow of Albany, New York, is a researcher with a background in electronics and has spent countless hours exchanging ideas with physicist Dr. Daniel Winter, now of Waynesville, North Carolina. Yarrow puts Winter's insights into simpler terms. Dan Winter explained, Haarp, high-frequency emissions can couple heterodyne, in technical terms, with long-wave, low-frequency, or ELF, pulses the Earth grid uses to distribute information as vibrations to synchronize dances of life in the biosphere. Dan terms this geomagnetic action Earth's information bloodstream, likely coupling of Haarp, HI, high frequency, with the natural ELF, extremely low frequency, can cause a dimension of unplanned, unsuspected side effects. In his own words, David Yarrow described possible interactions of Haarp radiation with the ionosphere and Earth's magnetic grid. Haarp will not burn holes in the ionosphere. That is a dangerous understatement of what Haarp's giant gigawatt beam will do. Earth is spinning relative to a thin electric shells of multi-layer membrane of ionospheres that absorb and shield Earth's surface from intense solar radiation, including charged particle storms in solar winds erupting from the sun. Earth's axial spin means that Haarp, in a burst lasting more than a few minutes, will slice through the ionosphere like a microwave knife. This produces not a hole, but a long tear, an incision. And then there's a notation, 77, letter from David Yarrow to Gar Smith, Earth Island Journal, August 18, 1995. An acute concern here is Earth's thin shell of ionized molecular oxygen, the ozone layer. Cruelly plucking the strings. Second concept. As Earth rotates, Haarp will slice across the geomagnetic flux, a donut-shaped spool of magnetic strings, like longitude meridians on maps. Haarp may not cut these strings in Gaia's magnetic mantle, but will pulse each thread with harsh, out of harmony, high frequencies. These noisy impulses will vibrate geomagnetic flux lines, sending vibrations all through the geomagnetic web, even as a single thunderstorm's lightning flashes emit pulses felt globally by sensitive sensors. The image comes to mind as a spider on its web. An insect lands and the web's vibrations alert the spider to possible prey. Haarp will be a man-made microwave finger poking at the web, sending out confusing signals, if not tearing holes in the threads. And a notation, letter from David Yarrow to Gar Smith, Earth Island Journal, August 18, 1995. Effects of this interference with symphonies of Gaia's geometrical harp are unknown, and I suspect barely thought of, even if thought of. The intent of Haarp is to learn to exploit any effect, not to play in tune to global symphonies. And I have to say, I think that's what test subjects is. There's not even a thought about what they're doing. Anyway, correct words. What is the condition of the ionosphere after the rocket scientists went ahead with 15 years of burning through it with rocket exhaust, and puny in comparison with early generation of ionospheric heaters? Is it damaged? Manning found that scientists dislike the word damage. It's too strong. One ionospheric physicist said, "We say disturbed. You know it is going to be the same as it was before. If you lose your leg, that's damage. But if it is just cut, that's not damage." Wow. The head of his department set the tone for this attitude, although there were ionospheric specialists on his staff. He told Manning that he has neither the interest nor the time to get too deeply involved in the topic of ionospheric heaters. Why are you interested in Haarp? The journalist replied that she had some questions about a reported multiplying effect from the new ionospheric instrument, and the tone of his reply was amused, put down. If you're concerned about the ionosphere over Vancouver vanishing. I'm not trying to be an alarmist. It sounded like it, he said. No wonder the media doesn't push environmental topics, the reporter thought. Unrepentant alarmist. The department head would not welcome the views of Paul Schaefer, who sounds an alarm vigorously. His degree is in electrical engineering, and he spent 4 years building nuclear weapons. But most of the theories that we have been taught by scientists to believe in seem to be falling apart, he says. And that's provided a letter to Jeane Manning from Paul Schaefer, February 1995. In a publication titled Energy and Our Earth, he synthesizes research about imbalances caused by the industrial and atomic age, especially by radiation of large numbers of tiny, high-velocity particles like very small spinning tops into our environment. These relativistic particles, these highly energetic particles radiate into the Earth and its atmosphere, disrupting the natural balance. In a chain reaction fashion, as they desperately seek a balance with their surrounding, such particles accumulate in the polar region during winter. When polar spring occurs, the repulsive effect of the sun's energy causes the entire mass of negatively charged particles to move toward the Earth, creating a hole in the ozone layer. The unnatural levels of motion of highly energetic particles in the atmosphere and in the radiation belts surrounding Earth is the villain in the weather disruptions, according to the model, which describes an Earth discharging its buildup of heat, relieving stress, and regaining a balanced condition through earthquakes and volcanic action. Information from Paul Schaefer, Kansas City, Missouri, 64111. Among the technologies which produce clouds of particles unnaturally elevated in charge are transmission lines, electronic warfare systems, command, control, and communication system for space flights and testing of Star Wars weapon systems. Feverish Earth. One might compare the abnormal energetic state of the Earth and its atmosphere to a car battery which has become overcharged, with the normal flow of energy jammed up, resulting in hot spots, electrical arcing, physical cracks, and general turbulence as the pent-up energy tries to find some place to go. In a second analogy, Schaefer says, unless we desire the death of our planet, we must end the production of unstable particles, which are generating the Earth's fever. A first priority to prevent this disaster would be to shut down all nuclear power plants and end the testing of atomic weapons, electronic warfare, and Star Wars. William Van Bise and Elizabeth Rauscher noted that orbiting hardware is praised as a way to study the ozone layer. But each time a space shuttle burns its way through the sky, it destroys another increment of the ionosphere, just as every meteorite does. Then, as if rocket exhausts have not done enough, space capsules have ejected chemicals that dramatically interact with charged particles. They light up the aurora borealis artificially, but when they light it up completely is when they kill off the ionospheric layers. Meanwhile, the military builds its biggest ionospheric heater yet, to deliberately create more instabilities in a huge plasma layer, the ionosphere, and to rev up the energy level of charged particles. We can artificially influence the Earth's aurora with a relatively small amount of energy, and we know that outbursts of the northern lights do change weather patterns. Gary Lockhart, author of The Weather Companion. There's a note here. Gary Lockhart, Ancient Rainmaking, The Weather Companion, page 199, Wiley and Sons, Incorporated, New York. If the ionosphere is greatly disturbed, the atmosphere below is subsequently disturbed. Charles A. Yost. Charles A. Yost, Electrical Forces Applied to Basic Weather Phenomena. Paper presented at 1992 International Aerospace and Ground Conference on Lighting and Static Electricity. And this is where I end the reading, because chapter 9 will be next week. Tesla's Weather Apprentices is what that's called. Thank you so much for listening, if you did. I hope it helps. Oh, I meant to say, when was this book published? I keep getting that question. Copyright 1995. Oh, I didn't write to the publisher. I hope I don't get in trouble. I just read that there is a warning on it. I think I'll have to write a letter. Gee, I'm reading this. I hope it's okay. Anyway, it's not public anymore. This book is no longer being published, so I hope I'm not doing a disservice. And I will write a letter just to see if I could get permission. Anyway, thank you so much for listening in. If you have, I think it's scary that people in the military are affecting an ionosphere as if it's a monster when it's there to protect us. And then we all know, as spiritual beings, the grid, the earth grid, the electronic grid, if we're disrupting that, that's a very dissatisfying thing. You don't want to mess with the bio. Why would you want to mess with the biodome? I don't understand. Anyway, we all felt bad about using hairspray, but it was really the launching of rockets that was creating the ozone depletion. And who knows where we are now with these handheld energy weapons that they do have to modify our brains and put stories into our heads. And that's basically what they're doing with that same technology. Well, remember, people, I think a lot of you are amazing, and I do really love some of you. Be well now. Bye.